G'day guys, welcome to another video on My Blue Heaven. I haven't really done this before. I was pretty interested to, I suppose, read what our former GM of football, Brad Lloyd, had to say about our club, and this was the feature in the Herald Sun on Thursday. Quite an extensive piece. It is called Brad Lloyd Reviews Every Club's Footy Department. The footy boss today, Carlton Blues ready to rise again. Despite exodus of big names, refreshed list gives hope Carlton can climb the ladder. There's some headings there, subheadings, the test for Voss, the Carlton heat, high performance check-in, the coach's box, and then just some other things like list overview, A and B grade players, draft hand, salary cap, and then he makes a prediction for us in 2026. Now, people are saying, a lot of fans are saying, we haven't heard from Brad Lloyd for the best part of 8 years at the Carlton Football Club, and then suddenly he writes an article on us. Well, this is something that's going to happen. He's going to do for every club, and this is definitely not a hard-hitting piece. That definitely doesn't sound like a bitter ex-employer of the club who's just recently left. In fact, it's the opposite. It is quite fluffy. It's very positive. It was a great environment, culturally great, fantastic people there. Everyone's fantastic at Carlton. And if all goes well, then the future looks bright. I'm interested to hear from him because obviously it's our football club. He was employed for 8 years, and he's been around the traps. You know, this is an inexperienced, wet behind the ears operator. I mean, he played the game at the highest level, albeit just 11 games for Hawthorn. Then went into, I think for 7 years, he went in as a player agent, had a number of high-profile players that he was looking after. So he's seen that side of the game. From a list management point of view, he spent 11 years at the Fremantle Football Club looking after that side, and then came to us. And 8 years, it's one of the biggest jobs in a football club, which is the GM of football. And as I said, it doesn't sound like he's bitter with the club. In fact, it kind of feels like that time was up. That's my feeling with Lloyd, what he says in this article compared to what he might be thinking about the club behind closed doors. You don't get a sense of that in this feature, but I will go through it with you because he has mentioned a couple of interesting points if you can read between the lines. So this was Thursday's feature, and as I said, I assume he's going to do all other 17 clubs as well under the title as the Footy Boss. Very positive. Everything's very positive about the club when he was there. Challenges, but positive. Nothing wrong culturally. The environment's okay, and moving forward it should be okay as well. But he did say that as soon as he left, there was just massive changes. You know, like particularly from a playing list point of view, 10 list changes, 5 new faces, refreshed playing list. Use the term Carlton are a proud club, bit of a cliche. All clubs are proud, aren't they? All clubs want to label themselves as proud. And said the club is full of great people everywhere, hardworking players desperate to have success. And we hear that all the time. That is fluff. I mean, you want your football club to be desperate to have success. So we'll move on from that pretty quickly. I thought his take on Curnow is really interesting. He thinks Voss, if anyone at the club, Michael Voss would have had the most difficulty with losing the key members, TDK and Silvani as well. He mentioned key members of the side, but particularly Curnow. With Voss being out of contract, expectations to improve in 2025. He touched on the club. He did say the club received really good compo for Curnow, which will help with the Harry Dean situation this year, father and son, and also Cody Walker next year. But this is the interesting thing. He did say at the start of the trade period, and we all knew this, that Carlton were pretty desperate, want to Curnow to see out his contract. But once Curnow was adamant that he was out of the club or wanted out, Lloyd sort of alluded that Charlie Curnow isn't the type of character who would cope too well with coming back to the club if a trade hadn't come through. And this is what he said in the article. I think some players would cope okay with staying at the club after pushing to get out, but I think Curnow is one player that after going through that needed to leave, and I think Carlton would have realised that. So, yeah, I think that says a lot about, and he's an exciting footballer, great talent, great athlete, but I think that says a lot about Charlie and the fact that it maybe obviously he's going to be missed from a playing point of view, but I think it says a lot about him. And I'm gobsmacked. And I mentioned this before that he was even part of the leadership group. I'm gobsmacked that he would even be considered to be a vice captain of the football club. And to have your former footy manager say that Charlie Curnow is not the type of person that coped too well to come back if he didn't get his way says a lot to me that we're better off without him. He said he'd go on to say that Nick Austin is a terrific operator, and if we thought that Graham Wright was going to show Nick Austin the door, that was never going to happen. He said he's so invested in the club, and he did well. He did really well to turn the Curnow situation into the picks he did. He made an interesting point that over the last few years we've had a level of retention, had a high level of retention in our playing list. So we basically have kept the players that we've wanted, and obviously let go of the ones that, I suppose, list cloggers. But for the first time in years, we've been challenged with this, with players wanting out. Curnow, TDK and Silvani. And although he didn't say that in regards to TDK and Silvani, I get the impression that there was more to them two players leaving than just having offers that were too good to refuse. So he did go on to say that TDK and Silvani got offers that were too good to refuse, which I would have liked to heard a little bit more about that, but he's probably not going to say that in this, is he? So I wanted to say that's a soft take by Brad Lloyd, but maybe he alludes to the fact that this is a challenge now that players may have wanted out of the club, other than the fact that they were paying getting paid a lot of money from other clubs. The players brought in, so we had a bit of a word on this. The players brought into the club during the trade period. Now, he wasn't obviously there during that time, but he believes Hayward and Ainsworth will help with our forward line. Chesser and Florent will assist with running power and ball use. Interesting, isn't it? Like, Florent's going to be a really solid pickup for us, but someone like Chesser, you would think that, he's got still a fair bit to prove at the level. And he reckons that we've had our sort of eye on Liam Reedy now for a period of time. We've been tracking his progress, not only at Fremantle, but also potentially when he was sort of coming through the ranks at Frankston in the VFL. And we've sort of kept track of him, and the fact that he hasn't been able to get a game at Fremantle, we sort of pounced on him, which kind of makes it interesting given we've put a fair bit of time into young Flynn Riley. I know he's not a Carlton-listed player. I thought he showed a lot of promise, Flynn Riley, at VFL level late in the year when he got his opportunity in the ruck. 206 centimetres, left footer, pretty aggressive, nice skills, good ruck craft. So it'd be interesting to see what happens with Flynn Riley. I did read an article somewhere that he's a number of VFL listed players around the traps that clubs are looking at to pick up in the draft or even in the rookie draft. I can't see that being us. And I also can't see, I think it'd be a minor miracle to see Flynn Riley on our VFL list next season, which might open the door up for Zach Harding for the Murray Bushrangers, played in the Coast Talent League this year as an overager. He was on our VFL list, played one game late in the season. He's a 199, 200 centimetre ruckman. So if Flynn Riley goes out, that probably opens the door if Zach Harding doesn't get drafted to maybe stay on Carlton's VFL list to get more opportunities. Not quite sure, but I'm pretty sure now, given that we've picked up Liam Reedy, that Flynn Riley will probably say, yeah, it might be time for me to move on and go to another VFL club. Anyway, that wasn't mentioned in the article. He mentioned the Elijah Hollands situation, guys, more in regards to, I suppose, the challenges around his contract and paying that out, and it is kind of complex, and the club have to decide whether the money, or he's paid out in full in 2025, or he's paid out throughout next year. So payments, though, for contracted players will be counted in the TPP in the year they are paid. So if they decided to pay him out this year, then that's included in this year's TPP. But if they decided to pay him out over the course of next year, it's included in 2026. And this part of this process needs to be, I mean, this can't just be our decision. Like, this needs to be negotiated with Elijah Hollands, player agent, player manager. So they obviously came to some sort of agreement, not quite sure what that is. So he spoke about that, which was interesting. He also spoke, and this is where it comes to a bit of a backhanded slap at us fans, guys. I don't think he intentionally means it, but he spoke about the internal noise, about powerful influences affecting Carlton and its culture. And I'm not referring to the supporters there, more about, your Mathesons and stuff. But he basically hit the nail on the head with he just put this one to bed and said, the club's really stable at board level, really stable. It's kind of hard to believe that, isn't it? But he said that the board is stable and the club has a passionate and supporter past players group. We've heard that maybe some of our past players have too much to say, but he just says, no, they're very supportive. The board's stable. We don't listen to outside noise. There's no influential, powerful people with lots of money having influence. He said, no, that's not happening. And here is the backhanded slap to us fans, guys, and kind of patronising a little bit and condescending. But kind of, when you think about it, it should be this way, really. I mean, this is what he said. I think the trappings of playing for a massive club with a big supporter base, there is no doubt a frustration with 30 years that the club hasn't been able to win a flag. That frustration does boil over at times. I mean, he's talking about the fans here, the frustration from the fans. I think on the whole, players realise how blessed they are to be representing a big club and getting on the big stage so often. Carlton has had a really good handle in recent years on where the influence should come from inside the club. So in other words, they're not listening to us. They're not listening to us. They're just not. Okay, we buy our memberships, we turn up to games, we provide them money, we provide them support, we cheer, we shout, but they're not listening to us, guys. They could not give a fuck to the rank and file supporter. And when you really think about it, like, that's the way you want it to be. You don't want them to be affected too much, well, at all, really, about what us fans are saying. What you want, though, what you fucking want, is the people that are running the club, such as Brad Lloyd previously, and Graham right now, and Chris Davies, and Michael Voss, and the president, Rob Priestley, that they are honest to each other. They're fucking honest and transparent, and realistic. Yeah. And don't let their egos drive the club. Anyway, he did say that in 2023, in hindsight, guys, 2023, when we made it through to a prelim final, we were 5 goals up against Brisbane. that was probably one that got away and a missed opportunity. He didn't really go into reasons why it got away. He spoke about the momentum going into that final series and the terrific second half of the season, but he did say that's one that got away. Went into high performance, which was, I suppose, a big issue at the end of 2024, and the departure of Andrew Russell. Said Robbiness is a quality character and has settled him well. Said this year's injuries were unlucky, so alluding to an improvement in this area. And at the end of 2024, in regards to list management, it was about getting rid of the blokes who weren't durable, and getting a playing list that could be more durable. But the fact of the matter is, in 2025, we had some really bad luck with injuries with young players, in particular, Jagger Smith and Harry O'Farrell. This was an interesting one. Sis, I mean, we know he's a kind of a great leader. Has Nick Newman ever been part of the leadership group? I don't think he has. But he was just full of praise for Nick Newman. Can't wait to see him back on the field for Carlton in 2025, and says he is a potential senior coach in waiting. Then went on to the coaching setup, called it the coach's box. Once again, everyone's wonderful. Everyone's highly rated. Says Luke Power leaving will be a huge loss to the club culturally. He's gone across to the Western Bulldogs. Brad Ebert and Tom Lonigan, two other development coaches that were left, are high calibre people. And obviously Aaron Hamill as well. He mentioned the new coaching staff, but didn't really go into any real detail in regards to those. And then mentioned the game style, but we've heard this all before. And I suppose in his job, and this is part of the footy manager's brief, is to tick off the game style. So he was a big part of this, and he didn't mention that in the article. And why would he? He's more assessing Carlton, what has happened, what is happening now, moving forward. But he did say that Carlton need a better balance in game style. High-scoring team in 2023. Then the focus and emphasis went to defence. Then we struggled to move the ball with any flow at all. So I suppose when you think about that, that is one of the expectations, I think, going into 2026 will be that game style, and the focus, not so much the focus away from defence, but the better balance. So that's something to look forward to as well. From a leadership point of view, we were lucky to have Brian Cook, a wonderful leader, leading the club in recent years. Massive fan of previous CEO Kane Little. Said he was a gun when it came to the commercial side of footy. And then he didn't say this, but he alluded to the fact that bringing in Graham Wright with a football background was a deliberate thing for us, to try and move away from the commercial side, even though that is so important for the football club. But having someone in there from a CEO point of view who is football driven. He didn't say a lot about Graham Wright. Obviously, Graham Wright was the one that had to give him his marching orders. But he did say Graham Wright can actually put his stamp on the footy side of things while continuing to make sure that the club strives financially off it. But he did emphasise the fact that put his stamp on the footy side of things. Didn't go into much detail about his replacement, Chris Davies, but did say there needs to be this alignment of the president, Rob Priestley, the CEO, Graham Wright, and the GM of footy, Chris Davies. And considering all three are relatively new to the club, it is a really fresh look regardless of the playing list, off field from that leadership point of view, the three key figures, it is fresh, really fresh, and a new vision going into next year and moving forward. And this brings me, I suppose, onto the final point of Brad Lloyd's sort of assessment of us. What did he say about Michael Voss? Now, once again, he's one of the most hard-working, professional, passionate people in the game. This is his a view of Michael Voss. But he did say that there are expectations going into 2025. And with Michael Voss entering the last year of his contract, it is vital the Blues, led by the CEO, Graham Wright, are fully aligned on expectations for Voss as he begins 2026 with a refreshed playing list. So where does Brad Lloyd think we'll finish? He did say here, guys, he says 2026 prediction, the middle six, 7th to 12th on the ladder. Off the back of the exodus of De Koning, Curnow and Silvani, I don't think Carlton has the team to challenge for a flag. But with a better run and stronger ball movement, the Blues do have the talent to be competitive, middle-rung team, giving Michael Voss the chance to make the finals as he enters the last year of his contract. So what does that mean? Like, what does that mean in regards? So we don't know. I don't even know if we're going to get a lot of transparency from our CEO or our footy boss or even Michael Voss about what are the expectations for us, or at this stage anyway, moving into 2026. Is it finals or bust for Michael Voss in 2026? Does he have to play finals to be able to even be into any consideration of getting a contract for 2027? And you would think if we played finals off the back of what we did this year, with a newish list, fresh players, losing those three players that we play finals in 2026, it'd be a pretty good effort. Is that the expectation from your point of view? Do you think that would be the expectation from the club's point of view? Or is it more than just that? Anyway, I'll leave that, okay? I will say that these are the A and B grade players. He only mentioned 6 players here, guys. He says our A grade players are Patrick Cripps, Sam Walsh and Jacob Wiedering. I don't think you can argue with that. B grade, Harry Mackay. You would like to think Harry Mackay could be an A grader and probably will need to be an A grader in 2026. Adam Cherry's definitely not an A grader. You would say he's a B grader. George Hewitt's definitely a B grader, and you got Adam Sard there as a B grader. I think he's slipping quickly. I think at his very best, he's a B plus, nearly an A grader, but I think he's slipping into the C grade category. Adam Sard, and his potential A grade, Jagger Smith. Mentioned draft hand, not going to go through that. Salary cap. With the departure of senior players for the first time in a while, the Blues would have some really good TPP, total player movement room for future years, etc., etc. Anyway, I suppose I'll leave this one, guys, by saying, what do you think going into 2026 at this stage? I mean, we're only the 7th of November. Pre-season training hasn't even started. We haven't even had the 2025 national draft yet. But at this early stage, with the players brought in, players going out, the changes from a coaching point of view, Chris Davies coming in, Graham Wright had his feet under the desk now for 8 months. Michael Voss coming into the last year of his contract. Will he survive? Will he survive the year? And if he does survive the year, what does he need to do? What does the team need to do for him to get another contract into 2027? Give us your thoughts in the comments below. Speak soon.